All right, we're live.
We are live. Hey, hey.
Nice. Yay, we did it.
Yeah.
Um, hey, all right. Good afternoon. Hi, GitOpsians. I don't remember how I introduced this stream anymore. I'm done. I'm fried. It's
And
Thursday,
fried.
and I need this week to be over. Um, I don't have any announcements today, so I'm actually just going to go ahead, Christian, and kick it straight over to you so that you can get this show on the road.
I thought I literally just said I'm gonna kick Christian. I'm like that wouldn't
I
be the
should
first
just
time.
kick Christian
You
next
should,
time I
yeah.
see you.
Yeah,
I'll
next
just
time
do
you see me,
that.
just kick me in the shins. Yeah. So so Tal says hello, good options. The so someone remembers your catchphrases. So I actually never seen that spelled out, so that's pretty cool.
Wait, someone you say that like I mean, first of all, I love and appreciate Tall and his
Yeah,
dedicated
Tal. Yes,
viewership.
dedication to the show.
Um,
Yes.
but also like I think it's more than one. It's probably at least two of our viewers remember
That's
it.
right. That's true. Yeah, there's dozens of us. There's literally dozens of us.
Dozens of us and friends with like half of them, and they definitely
Yeah,
know it.
yeah. So yeah, I really don't have any other announcements other than I just got back from GitOps Con, which was really cool for me on a personal level because I was part of the I was co-chair of the planning committee. So that was really cool. Our first time as like being like on our own kind of. Well, we're co-located with Open Source Summit, but Open Source Summit is kind of like a series of conferences. So we were kind of co-located with the CD Foundation with CDCon. So kind of makes sense. We GitOps CD Foundation. Let's do something together. So those folks are really cool. Really big shout out to everyone at the CD Foundation. That was really great. I had a great time. I had a lot of positive feedback from a lot of people. So hopefully we keep that train going. Maybe hopefully in Spain, we'll see. It all hinges on the CNCF, so and Linux Foundation in general. So we'll see what happens. But it was a good time had by all, great talks. I emceed the second day and I didn't mess it up, so that was kind of cool. Yes, exactly. Anytime you don't mess up, it's always really cool. So yeah, so when check out my Twitters when you see when the recordings come out, I'll post those. A lot of cool talks were had by there. But like Hillary said, no really big other announcements. I'd like to introduce our guests, right, or have them introduce themselves. For me, they are here. I don't know where they are in your screen, but yeah, they're right there.
Yeah.
Caelan and JP from Pipekit. So yeah, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about Pipekit and kind of your background.
For sure. Yeah, so I'm Caelan, co-founder, CEO.
I'm JP, founder, CTO.
Yeah, and we are the founders of Pipekit. So Pipekit is a control plane for Argo Workflows and running all sorts of data operations on Kubernetes. So we help data teams scale up pipelines on their own Kubernetes clusters. We also provide enterprise support for Argo Workflows, the open source project, as we help maintain the project and have been contributing to the project for the last 2-3 years now. Yeah, and we're calling in from Lisbon, Portugal right now. We had a great time.
Must be nice. Yeah.
Great time at KubeCon Youth. Decided to stay and work out here for a good chunk of the summer. We have a team of about 10 all over the world, so a good chunk of folks are out in Europe, and we thought we'd hang out here for a while. As for a little more background about us, so I'm originally from California. Been working in the ML data space at various startups in my career. And that kind of led me essentially to work out at a startup called Kite, which was an autocomplete for programming languages. So a precursor to the now famous GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT. And basically ran into a lot of the scaling challenges that a lot of startups are now facing, trying to leverage ChatGPT in their products, and got to realize infrastructure is a big deal for doing machine learning. And JP and I have been friends for a long time, got together and kicked off Pipekit, and I'll let you tell kind of the origin story.
Obrigado. Yeah, so
since you're in Portugal, right? Yes.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, since or like before working at Pipekit, I was working at Docker, where I was one of the maintainers of Docker Hub, and specifically the automated like image build pipelines, like as a part of Docker Hub. Internally, we were working on a tool that was called Pipekit, that was a like a workflow orchestrator on top of Docker Swarm. And when I left Docker, Kubernetes was like the wave, and we weren't seeing as much like Swarm development. Most of the workloads were moving to Kube. And I asked some of my like data science and data engineer friends, like, "Hey, are you using Kubernetes and Docker?" And they were all just like, "No."
Like what?
It's something they like wanted to do, but the tooling like really wasn't there yet. And so after chatting with a bunch of them and like really feeling their pain, especially about like scaling up and scaling down like data pipelines, did some research into like what communities were like interesting places. Found like Argo Workflows to be like the like pipeline and like workflow orchestrator that was built for and on like Kubernetes, and figured like, hey, let's just see if we can help like these data scientists and data engineers adopt that.
You know what I always tell people, like, what's funny is that like when people say Argo, now they think of Argo CD, but like not too long ago when people said Argo, they meant workflows, right? Like even the CLI for Argo Workflows is just Argo, right? It isn't Argo CD, it isn't Argo events or anything. So it was one of the biggest projects to come out, the most popular project for a long time. I think still is with respect to stars, if you're going to count.
You just caught up. Yeah, so both are
Yeah.
at, I think, 13,000 GitHub stars, which is, incredible to see the growth over the last year, especially for CD. And then, Workflows continues to grow, like you're saying.
Yeah, you know what's funny? People don't know that. People don't know this. Let's see if anyone in the chat knows this. But Argo CD was originally built. If anyone knows this, drop in the chat. But if not, I'll spoil it right now. Argo CD was originally written to deploy Argo workflows. It
Really?
was So originally Argo CD was okay. Well, we have all these workflows. Like how do we get them to the cluster, right? Like, okay, I'm a data scientist, right? Like I have all these, I build all these, workflows, or someone needs like big batching. It's like, well, how do I get them to the cluster? And they're like, well, they're just CRDs, so we'll just use or Argo CD originally. Well, it has its roots in basically just deploying workflows. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
It's interesting
Tidbit
that
there.
it's like taken off really just as like an application delivery tool.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So in general, like people ask me all the time. I don't know if they ask you, Hillary, but they ask me like, what is Argo Workflows, right? We're from the Red Hat, side of things. So like if anyone mentions CI/CD, we're Tecton, right? Like we'll use Tecton, right? Like, yeah, exactly. You have the Tecton cat there.
Yeah.
Like we use Tecton, and we're like, well, what about Argo Workflows? It's like, well, Argo Workflows wasn't really originally created for CI. I mean, people use it and in some capacity very successfully for CI, but Argo Workflows wasn't originally created for that.
Yeah, definitely.
I will say, sorry, on the reverse side, somebody was talking about using Tecton in a way that is more similar to actually what Argo Workflows
yes,
was
exactly.
originally for. And I kind of saw that on my team. I was like, I guess you could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't have occurred to me, but yes, you can. And I think that's sort of how this has happened. It's just like, oh, well, yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can use it that way, yeah.
Really generalizable tools. So that's, I think, part of what's driving their popularity. Yeah. But I guess to answer, what is Argo Workflows for anyone who might be wondering, what are we here to talk about? It is a Kubernetes native orchestrator, super generalizable. So the original intent I think we're alluding to was it was for data workloads, stepwise data workloads, and then highly parallelizable data jobs as well, taking advantage of distributed systems, and really varied pretty significantly from the status quo, which is Airflow at the time, and arguably still is a really popular tool. But being deployed as a CRD and just having a much lighter weight deployment, a much easier time for if you're running all your operations on Kubernetes already, you don't have to manage as many dependencies, and has, I think, quite a lot of scalability value now. So we were just working with a customer on benchmarking, like, yeah, how would your workloads work with Airflow versus Argo on Kubernetes? And we were surprised to see that we got like a 7x performance bump by running the same jobs on Argo, just because I think it's running a lot less on the cluster. And the Kubernetes API handled all the parallelized jobs that we launched at a much higher scale than Airflow could. So I think that's like just a little bit of a glimpse of like what value, we're seeing like Argo adopters find now, and what we think is like driving the popularity still.
It's always very cool to have like a generalized orchestrator, because like right, like probably that's part of the reason why like Argo Workflows was you saw that performance, is because like the orchestrator underneath is doing that, doing the bulk of the job that maybe if you were using like Airflow or something else where like you have to write the orchestration part of it. Whereas in Kubernetes, it's just an API. It's just there for you. It does it for you. So it's just like it's just crazy how like Kubernetes just in general has like kind of allowed us to do allowed us not to think more like on the process and not think about orchestration, because that part's just like taken care of.
Yeah, I actually was just talking, and Airflow is actually the tool that we ended up using instead of Tekton or for this project. That I was referencing a minute ago, but I was actually talking to one of the engineers on that project, and we were talking about like the principles of distributed computing, right? And so it's kind of interesting as I'm hearing us talking about this and like the performance boost and so forth. If you think back, like all the time we spent writing into our software, like parallel processing and like multi-threading and all these other things, right? That could kind of do the same things. Or it's like, or we just have this one thing and we spawn it a bunch and we distribute that. And if that gets into what you were saying is performance boost and resource usage actually tends to be like, what is the most efficient way I can use the hardware, and probably continuing to do that lots of times can give you boost versus, like having multiple threads or multiple processes all touching kind of some of the same things and causing locks and race conditions and trips and all those other little finicky bits that you get into when you start doing it. And so we're talking about, I was like, yeah, so like the thing about Kubernetes is like before you had Kubernetes, like you still had like computes distributed across, like multiple places and so forth. It was just like the orchestration of it. Now we have that without needing to actually physically separate out our compute, because we've allowed us to like virtualize the whole thing. But like the principles and the foundations for all of this is real old. Like we didn't do anything new here. We just changed the playing field where we're doing it.
Definitely. It also just feels like it's good to offload a lot of the like mental overhead of like, hey, I have to worry about, maybe like setting a mutex somewhere or like handling like that parallelization. Really like someone who is like, a data scientist or a data engineer, really whatever task you're doing, like a lot of that is just kind of like boilerplate. And it's a lot of things where you can really hurt yourself if you're like, hey, we didn't set this lock correctly and we want to like distribute these tasks and run them in parallel. So yeah, being able to offload that to like the API layer, like that's such a huge value add for people in general. And really like this Kubernetes wave and has like unlocked a whole new level of distributed programming. That's just really interesting to see.
So I always talk about like the vast popularity of Argo Workflows, because like it took a while for Argo, as popular as Argo CD was, it took a while for it to like catch up in popularity. What do you see the biggest use case? So like we kind of touched on a little bit like AI ML workflows, maybe a little bit CI/CD, maybe some batch process, job patch management. So what do you see as the reason, like the popularity for Argo Workflows, like and also like what's like the biggest use case? Is it AI ML? Is it CI/CD? What do you guys see in with the popularity of Argo Workflows?
I mean, just a great logo.
Really adorable. The kids
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, right. And I mean, like, like.
So speaking of
Why not
kids
use
love it, that is why I don't have an Argo plush here, is because my child will not stop stealing it. And
Yeah.
so then, right, then the Intuit people, they were so nice at a conference. They gave me two, one for me and one for him, hoping to solve this problem. But now he just has this collection
Two.
of all of
Yeah.
them I've ever received, and I cannot get it back. He
It's
is
the logo.
Yeah, between my daughter and my dog, Argos couldn't
Yeah.
exist here. Yeah, like it's hard to find out where Argo is in our house too.
But yeah, I mean, logo aside, like, I do think like Argo as a community is like really taken off. We've seen just a lot of involvement like within Slack. The community is really what's like pushed it forward. Kind of at the end of the day, as y'all were mentioning, like these orchestrators are very like general purpose. It used to be like Tecton pipelines or Tecton CD was like very much like a CI CD tool, right? And like the marketing around Argo was that this was like a data orchestration tool. And we've seen people like, kind of cross pollinate a bit both ways, where some people are running some like data jobs using Tecton like CD, and a lot of people are running like CI using Argo workflows. But I do think like Argo workflows and specifically like the maintainers have done like a really good job of keeping that like community involvement, keeping people active, encouraging people to like post in Slack. And I think that's really like a big piece here, is just like that community for leading to growth.
Yeah, shout out to the community, and holler at us if you're looking to get more involved, share use cases, get use cases or user stories from others, tips. We're in the Slack to help you out. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's like the community that's been really strong. Some sort of magic I think led to that. I think initial early adopters like Red Hat, Intuit, Bloomberg, New Relic, a bunch of these like early adopter type tech companies that really know what they're doing helped a bunch. And over time it's just kind of cross-pollinated. And when you look at like the user surveys of Argo workflows, it's really interesting because it's still like very much a generalizable tool. And current demand and like new user adoption is coming from still, I think, three big sources. So it's split about like 30, 35, 30, like pretty split between CI use cases, people coming for either Argo workflows or looking for a Jenkins alternative on Kubernetes. That's a big one. Want to pair something that works great with CD now that CD has gone mainstream and Argo CD is so big, and why not go with Argo workflows in that instance? So that's like a good like third of adoption. And then batch processing is still really big. Again, like to Hillary's point, why would you want to rewrite all your orchestration business logic and just focus on what you need to do? And Argo helps you get a lot of those like parallelization features out of the box, cron features out of the box. And so for batch processing, it's still super popular. And then now what we're seeing is more ML, AI adoption. So not just because like LLMs have become huge, but more so I think because as JP alluded to earlier, like data teams are now embracing containers a lot more for their development and driving iterative, just cycles on the development team. Like data scientists have, I think, really embraced Docker now over the last few years, which is awesome. And then the next question is, well, let's go to prod, right? And if you want to do that, if you want to scale up, serve your models in production, it's arguably no better way to do that at scale than using Kubernetes and deploying, and with the cloud providers now providing a lot of tooling out of the box for that, for data-driven apps. I think now we're seeing folks come and see, well, if we want to deploy models, on Kubernetes, let's start to orchestrate everything on Kubernetes. And what are the tools available? And so, you can run Airflow on Kubernetes, but hey, Argo's here, Argo Workflows is here. It's cloud native, with a few, like a YAML template, you can integrate Prometheus, right, Grafana, and off you go to like a production scale deployment and full on end-to-end machine learning like orchestration. So I think that's the last bit of demand that we're seeing, or like new user adoption, is now ML.
That's interesting. Like I would think so. Like from my naive 10,000 foot view, it's kind of like it's like data science is like, I think, rapidly catching up, like being operationalized. Because before, like, a data science would just have their machine like right next to it, right, and that's exclusively, right, like it would have like 5 video cards or whatever, and like it was just exclusive for running, and then it started moving into the data center. It's like, well, now I have to share this hardware, and it kind of sucks, right? And then it's like, well, we can share, like we can get more density like by using containers, right? And it's like, well, we need to orchestrate that, and it's like, okay, well, you have Kubernetes, and now you have like, it's just kind of it's rapidly being operationalized, right? Whereas not even like, I would say as little as like 3 to 5 years ago, like I mean, probably still even today, some data scientists, they have their machine right next to them, right? It's like, why do I have to learn like this whole thing? I could just like tap into my machine here to do the but now our things are getting operationalized, right? Like things are like being like, okay, let's operationalize, let's make some sense of all this madness, right?
I think the order of magnitude on the data has also increased exponentially as well. So you really are not going to, I'm just going to talk about money. You're not going to get your money's worth out of a machine that you can put on somebody's desk compared to what you can do with cloud computing and, just like you said, distributed computing and so forth. And then by, like you say, operationalizing it, we can abstract the data engineers and their concerns away from the where of what their stuff is doing and just into the what. So we're making them more efficient. We're saving them mental cycles. We're saving them context and paradigm shifts and all the other gains you get when you add containers and container orchestration into the equation, right? Like, if you're an application developer and once you understand the paradigm of, writing applications for containers, you don't have to start caring anymore about the whole, well, it worked on my machine and all the other stuff, right? Your dependencies are declarative. Your machine is declarative. Like, every single thing about it is exactly the way you told it to be every single time. So we've stripped away some of the, like, Christian, you were saying a while ago, like, you can almost be like click ops, right? In terms of like maintaining a public cloud presence or what have you, right? So we've abstracted these things away and saving people the mental energy of doing that, and then the toil of doing everything, right? So when we've had to, that's like been a necessity, because again, the order of magnitude of data that we have and the speed at which we are expected to get value from that data, because raw data provides you very little value. Like, all the value is derivative. And which way you look at the data, you have to run it through multiple models and have opportunity to play with it and iterate over those in order to really understand, what is this data really telling me? Which of the contexts of this data actually matter? If you start looking into things like IoT telemetry and all of like the raw metrics that come through, plus all of the labels you would apply to those metrics in order to contextualize them so that you know how valuable they are in trends. And then start looking at where we start applying all of that data learning to which types of problems. We're looking at like preemptive maintenance on systems. We're looking at early leak detections on systems. We're looking at, all of these types of things that you can start doing and then start predicting based on the existence of this data. So I'm not surprised. Like, the operational thing, like, it just makes sense when you start looking at how much data a data scientist needs to look at compared to how much data and that they actually have available to look at.
Yeah.
Compared to what they would have had 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. Like, it's consistently growing at an order of magnitude. We have
Moore's law, right? Yeah.
Dumb amounts of data. The big project I'm working on right now is a data project, right? That's why obviously I was looking at Airflow, and we have dumb amounts of data, and so it's like, okay, let's start doing real things with this data, right? And so and we have to operationalize that. We have to, because there's just no way to do useful things on it while having to also care about the entire stack that deeply. Like, oh, if that were my life, I think I would quit. But it's not my life. My job is simpler, thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
Christian.
no, go
I was
ahead,
gonna say,
JP.
touching on that point a little further, like kind of when we were starting out Pipekit, I was doing some like research and asking like those data scientist, data engineer friends, like how much they were spending on idle compute time at their companies. And that number was like $100,000, like depending on, the company size. Like this is for a company that's doing ML in what, like 2019, 2020. You just had to, as Christian mentioned, like have these like big boxes that were like next to your desk and just keep them on like all the time.
Yeah, we bought GPUs sitting next to certain engineers at Kite. Yeah, that was circa 2018, 2020. Yeah.
And what's nice is like now, like as you mentioned, like kind of having that large data, like forcing you to operationalize from the get-go. I feel like it kind of levels the playing field a little bit more for like some of these like startups who, maybe they don't have like a big funding round, or like they want to, develop something that is like very data intensive, and they just want to like get going. They can do that going from like zero to like scaling up, keeping the same like workflow, keeping the same like habits going, if they start adopting like that cloud native, Kubernetes native approach from the jump.
Yeah, and this is not financial advice, but the fact that I'm going to preface that always, right? And
Yeah,
don't look to me. I'm not a math person. Don't look to me for math stuff. But right, public clouds, a lot of them are consumption-based billing.
Yeah.
And so if you're not consuming, you don't have to spend the money on it. So the idle CPU is not costing, in terms of, like you said, general base electricity, hardware lifespan, right? I always get into this, like why I care about certain things when I'm looking at software. It's not financial advice. Why I care about, the profiling of the software and so forth is I know I'm going to end up, a lot of times some of the stuff I touch is going to end up on real hardware. And if anything we do is going to end up overcommitting CPU, well, I'm starting to go into the position of shortening the lifespan of my hardware. Plus, making it run hotter, which necessitates more air conditioning, and this whole other like listen to the talk I gave for I was recently on the Harness Ship Talk podcast, and I actually kind of went into that deeper about like, okay, then we start. And we actually were talking about the fact that we have all this insane amount of data. We need to start doing smarter things with it, was the other half of that talk. But anyway, Thank you for coming to the extremely condensed 2-sentence version of my talk.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is thank you. But yeah, so it's again, not financial advice, but you putting just investing in some person hours up front saves you the that monetary cost in all of the other things for longer periods of time. And then you only spawn however many jobs you actually need. And you only consume however many resources you actually need, versus, okay, well, I had to buy a terabyte of memory for this server because every now and again I need it, versus, consistently needing it and so forth. And so like that's all those little, like the consumption based model of it. It does play into kind of your spend and that startup land that gets into your runway and all your other stuff and so forth. I've been around this industry a little while. I know some stuff about this. None of this is financial advice, of course. I think I said that enough times. This is very clear.
Right. It's like, we got a ticker now, by the way.
Not financial advice. Do not come to me to talk about how you're spending your money.
Yes, exactly. So it's kind of, we talked, a little bit about like, okay, like we almost democratize some of these processes with like Argo workflows, and it's kind of cool seeing like some of the things like come that spawn out of it, like the Hera tool set, right? It's just like, oh, like let's build a library that manages Argo workflows, which is, I think that's pretty cool, something that spun out. And so my next, I guess the next my next question, or I guess kind of like leading on to the next topic a little bit about, so okay, you have Argo workflows. What does Pipekit give you, right? So Pipekit, you guys said you thought this was awesome. A lot of people thought Argo workflows was awesome. What made you decide, be like, okay, how can we further help people with Argo Workflows. So can you tell us a little bit, maybe, here's your chance, right, to tell a little bit what Pipekit does and
For
helps out?
sure. Yeah, for us, like with Pipekit, our goal is to get you to value as quickly as possible as a data team. And you might be coming from a place where you're a Kubernetes expert, you might not. And really the goal is how do you, ship your models faster, run your workloads quicker, use auto scaling to save commute costs, as Hillary was just getting into. And for us, we're saying, hey, for less than a cost of an engineer, we'll get you to production with Argo Workflows in a couple weeks, or we'll solve your hardest, scalability challenges if you're already using Argo Workflows and self-hosting it. And there's a couple of areas where people see that really tangibly. I think the first area is like, as a data engineer, infrastructure engineer, your users are data users, data scientists, ML engineers who might not be as Kubernetes fluent. So we make it really easy to onboard those users in a matter of minutes with our own pre-built RBAC model for Argo Workflows. That means you're not provisioning a bunch of access to your Kubernetes cluster. It can just run through the Pipekit control plane. And the second big advantage with us is you get a lot of best practices coming out of the box with how to implement alerting, how to implement triggering and GitOps integrations, all the sorts of tools and techniques that the companies that have been using Argo Workflows for now years come right out of the box with Pipekit for you. And the nice benefit is we're a SaaS company, but we have an agent deployment model. So we let every data team bring their own cluster so that the compute remains on your servers, within your environment, and only exposes metadata to the Pipekit control plane to help you orchestrate all of that in one central convenient place.
Yeah, the goal is to help platform and infra teams enable self-serve for their data science and engineering teams, right? Like if you're a platform or an infrastructure engineer, you kind of want to say hey, data scientist, data engineer, here's your area where you guys can just go ham. Either you have access to 3 or 4 clusters or a couple different namespaces within these clusters, and you can just submit workflows without having to get a bunch of control access, divvy that out, and worry who has access to what resources. So we're that central control point where you can onboard your data science, data engineering team, and
Yeah.
I guess shift left is the
Yes.
catchphrase now. It's kind of shift left for data science and data engineering.
So that's really covering how you get started faster with running workloads on Kubernetes. And so we work with both startups and large enterprises that are in that phase. And then we work with folks who have already been using Argo Workflows for a year or two, and now they're running into ultra scale challenges. And what Pipekit helps them with there is, now that you have a central control point for all of your workloads, you can start to incorporate a multi-cluster architecture, which is not something that's available in the open source. So that's our last kind of value prop for companies that are kind of matured in their Argo adoption is, hey, if we're operating across regions, if we run out of GPU in this region, we want to now run the same workflow, same template. I don't want to have to kubectl into that region. Let me just ship it through the Pipekit control plane and get the job done that way. That accelerates their ability to run workflows across the world and get ultimately, again, just helping them get data jobs done faster.
Does Pipekit, but it sounds like you have a big focus on on AI ML, but is also do you find end users using it for CI as well?
Internally, we use it for CI. We haven't really built it with CI in mind, but it has been a popular question we get, or some users are using it that way as well. We designed everything with the idea that eventually data scientists and data engineers do really want to start saying hey, I'm going to start pushing this workflow to Git and using Git as the storage of state. That's a trend where it seems like data teams are starting to shift in that direction, but it kind of wasn't that way, again, 4 or 5 years ago. So we thought hey, again, a lot of these patterns look very similar from the CI workload, but it wasn't our intention originally.
Bringing in the dumb amount of CI experience I have in my background.
Love it.
Yeah. The thing that I would have wanted so much in my early career before before it would have existed would have been the idea of taking all of the tests that we write and define and being able to say, okay, now I'm going to run them all X, like not just X times, but X times concurrently or like X times in batches and so forth. Um, because you spend all this time writing and defining tests that really like fully validate the behavior, but only the behavior at that exact scale, right? So if you could take the full validation thing, and a lot of load testing and stress testing tools, like you have to just redo the work in them in their way of doing it, and like you end up with your test defined in this, you know, in multiple places. I think some of that's gotten better. Obviously, it's been a few years since I've been directly playing in that space, but yeah, I can see why you would start taking things like this and applying it to CI problems, because it's like, oh, I can do almost evil things
Yes.
to my application now, and
What?
I do bad things to your software is my number one recommendation for how to make your software better. Do really bad things to
Yeah,
it.
do bad things to it. See what happens, right?
Yeah.
You know, yourself.
Yeah. What's kind of it's a little funny. I think that with data scientists, since they're coming into this maybe a little new, have like um, a better, I guess, way of understanding things like workflows, right? Like Argo workflows, or even like Tecton, or even something that's like cloud native. Whereas like if you get someone like me, you get someone like Hillary, and like one of our CI processes dies or like fails for some reason, like our immediate instinct is like, well, let me SSH into that server and see what happened and read the logs. And it's like, well, what do you mean that container's gone? I'm like, well, it's gone. It got, you know, it failed. So Kubernetes culled it, and, you know, that's it. Whereas like data scientists, like, you know, you're teaching them from new, like they don't know that history. So I think, in a lot of ways, you know, some of these, people now that are kind of just like learning this new, way of massively orchestrating things, have a little bit of advantage, whereas some of us are kind of like we have to like retrain ourselves to, to think in terms of like of, I guess, stateless, right, kind of CI/CD processes, especially like the whole DAG design of workflows, and trying to trying to like keep all that in my, you can have massive parallelism, but I don't know how many jobs you've ever ran in like CI jobs in parallel. Like you can get pretty massive.
Yeah.
I don't think I ran more like than 5. Um,
Yeah, that's about how many I ran. We gave a whole talk about this. I showed
yeah,
examples.
yeah,
It wasn't that long ago. We're not that
yeah,
old. Our memory isn't
yeah.
that bad.
I don't know. 2021. That is kind
That
of
was bad.
yeah.
So
Blur.
the daisy chaining, right? The daisy chaining of Jenkins jobs is like the thing I like to famously reference back to. And I say famously, like people have heard me talk about this more than like the one time I've said it. But yeah, the daisy chaining of Jenkins jobs that we used to do. It's, for me, all of these things seem like a very natural progression, because Christian didn't. I have accused all of these tools of basically just being clever ways of orchestrating bash scripts.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Or Python scripts, I guess, in this case.
Or Python
Yeah.
Python scripts that do bash things, like it's,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah. That do bash like
Python,
things.
yeah, bash like things. You can actually just execute bash from Python, although you shouldn't, for, you know, best practices,
Yeah.
security, whatever. But just because you shouldn't do it doesn't mean I've never done it out of just sheer laziness. So here, this is who I am as a person. So yeah, I think that these are all going back from my background and experience, and like so much of my career being spent specifically on CI/CD. I understand how these became the standards and the patterns, and how we ended up in overlaps where set tools designed for CI can be used for data, and tools designed for data can be used for CI. Like, I get it. I'm not sure if I can fully like express why I have the level of understanding that I do because of all that context. But like, nope, I totally get it. No notes. This is fine.
Let's see here. Sweet. So, I guess the next thing, I kind of want to talk about ArgoCon a little bit. Hillary and I, we talked about ArgoCon, but last episode, however, we were squarely in the CD rollouts room, right? There's so for those of you at ArgoCon, like, you know, people think about like CI/CD, people think about GitOps, but like there's this whole other world of like events and workflows that are they have nothing to do with GitOps, have nothing to do with CI/CD, right? And so I kind of want to talk about a little bit of ArgoCon, a little bit about you know, what you guys saw in the workflows track, right? Is there is there anything? I know, Caelan, you were involved a little bit in the planning of ArgoCon. You know, is there anything that stood out to you guys, or anything that surprised you that surprised you how people are using workflows?
Y'all had a densely packed room in that
Yeah, yeah.
Like that was like standing room only. Like Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
it was a lot. Yeah,
or the attendance in the workflows room, but like, good Lord,
hundreds in the workflows, breaking thousands, I think, in the CD side. So yeah, props to y'all for organizing that side of it. Yeah, on our end, I mean, we I think there were a total of 8 or 10 workflows talks, so a pretty packed day. I think what stood out to us is just how mature now some organizations are getting with workflows, either for data platforms or even for CI. So there were a couple of notable talks. Rabobank, I think, kicked off the day, which was an impressive talk about just like how their journey went with Argo Workflows, and shared a lot of great best practices. And was perfect given we were in Amsterdam, so that was cool. And then you know, another kind of, I guess, a coincidence was JP gave a talk with another financial services company, Bloomberg, who's been using Argo almost since the beginning as well, and talking a lot about the data platform and how they're using Argo, what challenges they're running into now. Maybe you can elaborate on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of interesting things around like workflow template sharing and their like approval process that they go through. You know, they spend a good bit of time building out that platform to really enable self-serve for like the broader like Bloomberg company. And it seems like the vast majority of their workflows are being run, I mean, just generally throughout the company, whether it's ML, you know, what have you, data science, you know, analytics are being run on Argo Workflows, and seeing that level of maturity is pretty cool. And then, I mean, I know they're also using Hera Workflows, so you know, we got to give a shout out to Flavio, who gave another talk as well.
Yeah, I think the trend now we're seeing there. A quick shout out to Yaolin, who is your co-presenter at Bloomberg. That was awesome. And then, yeah, shout out to Flav, the creator and maintainer of Hera Workflows, which was mentioned earlier. Again, just now bringing more Pythonic approach and concepts into Argoland, I think, is more than welcome. So first with Argo Workflows, I think next probably for Argo CD as well. And there's tons of pros and cons behind like why you'd want to do that. But obviously from a data perspective, we want to meet people where they're at. So we're big fans of Hera Workflows. We integrate and provide out-of-the-box support for Hera Workflows and Pipekit. And I think what was really interesting about that talk was the sheer amount of scale that you can, you know, going back to like everybody doesn't need their own GPU anymore. you can plug into hundreds of GPUs now on Google or AWS, etc. And Flab talking about how with now a Pythonic approach to orchestration on Kubernetes, he basically just hands off templates to his scientists to run these massive bioengineering jobs and gene therapy modeling jobs, and it's something like 2,000-3,000 node and parallel jobs at a time. And you know, this is like the data scientist running that now. You know, pretty hands off from the data engineer that platform set up. I think that's becoming more and more common. So we're seeing, I think, big adoption now with Argo Workflows among financial services, bio, you know, mentioning Internet of Things earlier as well. You know, observing manufacturing, observing like battery technology. is the main use case we're seeing as well. And I think those
That's cool.
shown during ArgoCon. Yeah, so those were a couple of the takeaways. I think another big one was shout out to Steph at Wolt, who gave a talk about just using Argo to orchestrate a bunch of different tools as well, and actually set up some load testing for ML models. So that was pretty impressive. Integrating Argo with workflows, with CD, with Flight, Prometheus. Again, just showing how like the systems, like you maybe start with just a basic DAG, but in 6 months or even 3 months, you're layering on so much more tooling that really makes your system more resilient, makes your team more move more faster and iterate faster with your models. And I think that's again why we're pretty pumped about Argo Workflows and the growth we've seen.
Yeah, I love technology that gets out of your way, which I think that's what technology should do, right? Sometimes you work with something and it's like you're just fighting with it. And sometimes it just works and you're like, now I can concentrate on doing my job. I can concentrate on doing what I've been wanting to do, like, which is modeling, AI modeling, data science, that stuff. It's kind of cool that people are using it for analytics, which makes sense now that I think about it, to trying to like massively digest a lot of things and trying to make sense of it. And you don't need a lot of long running processes, long running servers. Is just kind of like using something like Pipekit, right? Consumption models, like let me pay for what I use, and if I don't use anything, I'm not using it. So that's I think that's always cool. You have to be careful though. I think what was a quote? It's like for your cloud spend, you don't the most expensive part of cloud is paying for what you forgot to turn off, or something like that.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful about that.
Yeah. Again, having the right alerts matters. Observability matters.
Yeah.
Observability matters so much. I was gonna say that is the beauty of doing it as jobs, though, because jobs complete, right?
Yep.
Those pods, those containers, they're not still running. They do the thing, they complete, they're done. You have the record of their existence, so like prune that, clean up etcd. That's a thing that you got to remember to do, is clean up etcd.
Archive your workflows, PSA.
Yeah.
There you go, PSI. Yes, right, PSA. Archive your workflows.
Archive your workflows. Yep, exactly. So keep that happy. You don't want to see what happens when etcd gets full. It's really not a good time.
Yeah. Tales from the SRE, right? You don't
Tales
want to
from
see
the SRE.
Yeah.
By the way, Argo and Tekton have both done that to me on customer infrastructure. So watch that one. It's on you, end users. You must clean that up. You must. Pruning. They all have, the operators have they have like pruning like configurations in there, like to prune the old CRDs out. Go configure that. It's probably on by default now. You're welcome. That was me.
Yeah.
It was definitely me in Tekton. I'll take the credit for Argo too, but it's definitely me in Tekton. I had those conversations. I was like, no. But yeah, the my open source contribution. So I didn't actually do it. I just made them do it. Sorry. Really bad if you don't do it.
Which is also needed, right?
Which is also needed. I was like, look, here is all of the things that exploded because you don't have this feature turned on by default. Please turn it on. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, we're gonna turn that on.
Yeah, we're gonna turn that on. Yeah.
Good talk. That was
good talk.
That was how that went. But yeah, so but yes, it's, as much of these things get out of your way and do lots of things for you, and it's great because, like I said, they're jobs, they run, they execute, they complete. They don't vanish. So
yeah. As much as
your garbage collection, and not in like the Java way that might blow up in your face, but like the real one.
Yeah,
I will do a quick product pitch. Like with Pipekit, we do treat workflows as being like ephemeral, and like once they're done,
nice,
delete them from the cluster. Like just enforce that good hygiene because
we love it.
Smart.
Yeah, we love it. We love it so much that we're gonna prune it. Yeah,
exactly.
And now Argo Workflows does have an open source feature to garbage collect artifacts. That's another great way to make sure, you're cleaning things up with old jobs. So we talked about that at ArgoCon. I think a lot of these tips are things that you don't think about in the first sort of week, month that you're getting your hands dirty, heads down. But that's what we try to help new users with in the community, our own customers with, is just, hey, from the get-go, implement our workflow archiving, implement artifact GC. It's not hard. Here's the config. Whatever works for you, obviously, but there's a few of these best practices that we try to get out in the community, either in Slack, where you'll find us, or on our blog.
I feel like that's just generally one of those things, recycled.
Yeah.
I feel like generally that's just like one of these things with some of these like cloud native technologies. It's like you can hurt yourself. If you've configured something the wrong way, like stuff can explode, it can get like real expensive on you. It's important to figure out like what are those like really big like levers, whether it's setting the TTL on like Tecton or Argo Workflows or Artifact GC, as you mentioned, just to make sure that you're not saying like, hey, this cloud build just like got out of hand. Observability matters should be a t-shirt. I think you should take credit for that one. Maybe we can have like a team.
We can add it to you wouldn't have seen this probably. I have a t-shirt store, but it's not a real t-shirt store, but it's where I put a bunch of snappy one-liners up on t-shirts.
Yes.
Nice.
Observability matters should actually
Observability matters is
should be one of them.
That's a good one. I'll put it up there. Nobody has ever bought a t-shirt from this t-shirt store, and I don't encourage it either. That's not the point. The point is so that I can point at it and say, I put it on a t-shirt. No, stop asking.
Give us a link. I mean, we might do it.
Yeah.
Do you ship to Portugal?
Yeah. If you
do you ship to
Twitter,
Lisbon?
like
We'll
right
see.
It actually comes from the whole, I once said S3 is not your sysadmin. And people are like, oh my God, put that on a shirt. And then so one day my husband, in a fit of boredom, bought me the domain notyoursysadmin.com.
Yeah.
Where I keep thinking I'm going to put a blog someday, but then I'm lazy and I don't. But the most important thing that he did is then he had them make these pins.
Uh-huh.
Oh, cool.
And if you find me at a conference, I have them.
Yeah.
And I give them to people if you know to ask for them.
Will you be at ArgoCon or KubeCon North America?
Oh.
No idea.
Because that you should definitely pass that out.
Yeah, no, there are people wandering around with the pin. You will find them, especially Red Hatters have them. That's my. Please don't actually buy things from there. I would feel so guilty if somebody actually bought something, but like just to go and laugh that it's there. And I've put things on t-shirts
For the lulz.
Needs to go on one of those. I owe that. But yeah, so that's your next time you have a snappy one-liner you want on a t-shirt without actually having to go through the whole t-shirt thing, we can add it to the list of things people will never buy and then laugh and enjoy the fact
and laugh and enjoy.
That's really, it's just a very long-running joke because I just think it's great.
Just for the lulz, for sure.
Just for the lulz. But there was something I wanted to say, and then we got distracted by t-shirts and I forgot it, but it was about we were talking about cleaning up at CD and the care and the feeding, and there was something on those lines. I'm going to be so mad because we have 5 minutes left and I will remember it when we're done. After the fact. F my life.
Yes.
What was I going to say? You live rent free in my head. What was I going to say?
Yeah. I have no idea. Something about workflows.
It was going to be something about workflows. It really was. Consumption and so forth, and
you're gonna tweet it out later.
I know what we were talking about that made me think of the thing.
Yeah,
it's
other
not giving
foot guns with cloud native tech.
Yes,
it was. There was some stuff about. It was something about like getting yourself in trouble with cloud native technology. It really was exactly on that. Right. Oh, committing to Git. Thank you. Okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
It was actually a question, not a statement. So, in my past life, one thing that I did was I took the results of all the tests that were run, and I actually committed the results to Git. So instead of having to store them anywhere or anything like that, the scripts run, they execute, they commit their results back to Git, and then we have a historical Git is the source of truth. What happened? What did we test? How did it do? Right? Okay. So, since you mentioned that you treat it as ephemeral and prune it as default, is there already a like template or a workflow or something in Pipekit that would do that, basically capture the outputs or capture some important thing about probably observability data or whatever about the most recent run of the jobs and commit it to Git.
We do integrate with Git like check suite. So, whenever a workflow like runs successfully, if you've like tied it to, Git, whether it's like a pull request, tag, release, branch, what have you, it will like update the check. I don't think we've like actually gone through with outputting the result of that workflow. Like when I say the result, I mean like the actual like, hey, here's this big like JSON blob, and like throwing that back into Git. But I think that seems like pretty valuable generally. So thank you, I guess, for like farming free feature ideas.
Yeah.
This is what they pay me for, is to sit here and armchair like code and armchair troubleshoot and armchair software design. I actually just spend about 30 hours of my week on meetings.
Yeah.
Because I'm across several different projects. That's why I have the title Chief Mermaid, is I do a lot of swimming. And so, no, you haven't seen that? That's a real thing.
You
There's the tail.
Have a mermaid costume.
The tail is there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Real tail.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so all I do is armchair coding, armchair implementing, armchair designing.
We should have.
I'm good at anymore.
That's another T-shirt. Armchair coder.
I'm an armchair coder. Yeah,
armchair
there we go.
coder.
We've
yes,
got like
right.
4 just from this particular.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So cool. Yeah. We have a few minutes left.
Armchaircode.com is available.
Oh, there you go.
I know what I'm doing next.
That's. I know what I'm doing next. Yes. So next time you go to armchaircode.com.
It's just gonna redirect, not your system.
It redirect to the start. Yeah, exactly. It's just you're parking it there. So with the last couple minutes we have there, Caelan, JP, is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else? Where can you find you guys? Best place. Kind of. I guess besides Pipekit.io, where else can we find it?
That would be the first place to go. Check it out. We'd love to hear from you. Show you a demo. Maybe next time we hop on, we can make time for that too. But this was great chatting with you all. Besides at Pipekit.io, find us on Twitter, Pipekit.io, and then the best place too is in Slack. So in the CNCF Slack, check us out in the Argo Workflows, Argo contributors channels. If you have feature requests, bug reports, we're here to hear from you and help out however we can. Also looking to build the contributor community. So aside from, JP and I and 3 other developers on our team who are active on the repo, we're looking to build, more community contributions going forward. So don't be shy to reach out if you're looking to get involved in open source and push code. We'd love to support you in that. Other than that, we'd love to see you at ArgoCon. I think we're going to make an announcement soon about when that's happening.
Yep.
So we'd love to see folks and chat there. And of course, KubeCon, we'll have a booth and we'd love to hang out.
We got a good blog that Caelan has put together, and forgot to give him some credit for it. So I got to call that. And you also might see our infrastructure engineer, Tim, who's like really active in the Argo Workflows Slack.
Cool.
Super fun guy. Very British.
Great sense of
yeah. Cool. Yeah. So no, I think that's it. I don't have anything else. Hillary, anything else you wanna end on?
Do we even know what our next stream topic is in 2 weeks? I was gonna say that
I don't know. I need to look. We actually need to meet and see what the next what we're gonna do next. So we'll we have nothing to tease out yet.
I don't think we planned the entire second half of the year.
Yeah. Shoot from the hip. Yeah, exactly.
We'll just do it on like Dora metrics or something. Oh, I know. I don't have a link to it handy because I'm not responsible or an adult. We discussed this before the stream started. But next week, for those who pay attention to the Women in Tech community that I run on behalf of Red Hat for the WIT Network, which is a nonprofit that we sponsor. Next week on that, it was posted on LinkedIn. I was tagged. I'm sure it comes up if you search it. I am giving a talk about GitOps, infrastructure as code, why they're different, and how this all relates back to the whole concept of CI, CD, and like delivery. So, it's basically, if you've seen this stream, you're probably familiar, but if you have people who are interested in coming to something a little bit more interactive, a little bit less recorded, or women and allies and others in your lives who are kind of looking for that type of community, just kind of point them to that thing that I do, because then like the more people who come, the more other Red Hatters who I can get to agree to speak on things. Like, so we'll have some people talking who aren't me about Kubernetes with that community in a future date. We did a couple really great security talks in the past. We did blockchain at the beginning of the year. So like we do cool things there. We talk about cool things there, and we get cool experts in to talk about their cool expertise. So that is happening next Thursday, my morning. I don't remember what time. I'm not an adult, like I said. Who's I just am like last time I did one of these presentations, I literally was editing the slides as people were joining the call to see the thing. This is who right. I've become as a presenter, and that is what you can expect.
That's that expert.
Under. Yeah,
that's
expert.
right.
I literally, there was 4 slides. That was all I was like,
yeah,
it's...
For me, it's always the presentation's in here. It's
yeah.
just putting it on a slide. It's usually the last thing I do.
I'm not a visual person. I'm not good at it. You would get like just blank slides if I could get away with it. Yeah. Our talk at ArgoCon, I had architecture drawings up there simply because I needed to practice making them.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah,
that's the only thing. Yeah,
I needed practice.
Yeah, we find a bottle of wine helps with architecture diagrams.
Oh, wine. There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're in Portugal, so exactly. I'm pretty sure you're enjoying some of that right now.
Yeah,
making sure to draw a lot of architecture diagrams.
Yes,
fantastic. I will take your advice and report back with my findings.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Cool.
All right. That said, we are past the top of the hour. Thank you folks so much for joining. We really appreciated your time and your company on the stream. Thank you as usual for watching and sticking with us for a little bit late today. I'll let Christian decide yes or no if he's going to say some goodbye other than what I'm saying, but if not, choose your technical debt wisely, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Yep. Cheers.
Thanks for having us, Christian.